Hello, KB. Today we are going to read a short nonfiction story and do just a few things in your workbook together. So, what you'll need for this is you just need your book open to page 68 and 69, just so you have it ready when we're done with our story. But first, we're going to take a look at a nonfiction story called Animal Homes. Okay. Now, in this nonfiction story, we're going to focus on something called a glossary. A glossary is something that a lot of nonfiction stories have. And the purpose of a glossary is to help you understand words that you might not know what the meaning is. So, in our nonfiction story about animal homes, there might be four words: burrow, den, lodge, and reef that we don't know. We might not know what those words mean. We can go to the glossary to find out what those words mean if we don't know when we read them. So, the job of the glossary is just to help you understand words that you might not know in a nonfiction story. The glossary is usually at the back of the book. Like this is our last page in our story. Um, and that's where we can find our glossary. Now, our story, the title is Animal Homes. It's nonfiction, which means it's going to be about real animals and their real homes. So just sit back and listen to our story, and I'm going to start reading now. It says, "We are wild animals. We live in homes called habitats. Each habitat meets our different needs. Come see where we live." All right. The first animal we're looking at is called a prairie dog. "When I call out, it sounds like a bark. I live in an underground burrow. There are many different rooms and tunnels. My family lives in a big prairie dog town." Okay, I want you to look at this word burrow real quick. Burrow. This is where the prairie dog lives. Now, the word burrow was in our glossary. Let's take a look. It says burrow, an underground hole or tunnel dug by an animal. So if we didn't know what a burrow was, we could look it up and now we know, okay, a prairie dog lives in a place called a burrow, which is an underground hole or tunnel that the animal digs itself. Let's look at our rattlesnake. Ooh. It says, "Follow me into my rocky den. I hide behind rocks to stay safe from enemies or predators. My scaly skin matches my surroundings. I shake my rattle when there is danger." Now, I want you to look at this word den, D-E-N. This is another word that's in our glossary, just like the word burrow. A den is a protected rocky area where a wild animal lives. So the glossary is helping us understand what a den is, which is where the rattlesnake lives. Okay. Our next animal is a clownfish. It says, "My home is in the warm ocean. A coral reef is the perfect habitat. There are many openings and cracks to hide in. I live with sea animals called anemones. The anemones feed and protect me." Now, let's look at our glossary again. The glossary has the word reef, okay, which was where our clownfish lived. And we can learn that a reef is a place in the ocean with rocks and coral. So once again, the glossary is help us learn about this word reef. Now, our last animal in our story is our beaver. It says, "My home is called a lodge. I build it with sticks and mud. The door to my home is underwater. My lodge keeps me warm during winter." So if we go back to the glossary one more time, we see the word lodge, a beaver's house made of sticks and mud. So before we go to our workbook, let's just remember that the glossary is a part of a nonfiction story that can help us learn more about important words in the story. In this story about animals' homes, we could use the glossary to learn more about their different types of homes, like burrows, dens, lodges, and reefs. Now, keep that story fresh in your mind because we're going to have to do some work with it in our workbooks. Go to workbook page number 68. Okay. Now, it has our four different um, animal homes. We have a burrow right here, a lodge, a reef, and a den. Okay. Our first direction right here says circle the animal habitats that are underground. Okay, we're not talking about underwater, we're talking about underground. So use a pencil or a crayon or pen or whatever you have at home and circle me two habitats that are underground. All right, let's see how you did. If I was doing this, I would start to look at the pictures and think back to my glossary in the story. I would circle a den and I would circle a burrow. Okay. Because both of these habitats or homes can go under the ground a little more so in the burrow, but a little bit in the den too. My next direction says draw boxes around the habitats that are in the water. So we had two that were underground, and which two are in the water? That's right. I think we would have a box around the reef, okay, for sure. And then we want to put a box around the lodge too. The lodge, some of it is above water, but if we go back to our story and think about it, we can remember that it said that the door to the lodge for the beavers is under the water. So we wanted to circle the burrow and the den because those are can go underground, and we want to put boxes around the reef and the lodge to show that they are underwater. Okay, let's move on to page 69. We have three little sentences to finish here. Okay, now these three little sentences are all about page 38 in our story. Okay, so when we go to page 38, let's do that first. Page 38 was about the clownfish. Okay, and now if we look back at our directions, it says look at page 38. What does the author want you to know and write about it? So we've got a sentence right here that says, the small picture shows. So let's go back to that page. This is the small picture. Okay. And it actually has a label that tells us what it is showing. The small picture shows us a clownfish. So why don't we go back and I can actually fill it in with you too. Oops. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger. So right here, it says the small picture shows, and I'm going to put in the word clownfish. You can do that too. I guess I could change it to make it make more sense in a sentence and say a clownfish. So take a second to finish that up. The small picture shows a clownfish. Okay, let's look at sentence number 2. It says the label tells, so let's go back. We already kind of talked about this. The label tells us what the animal is. Okay, so we see the fish in the small picture, and then the label tells us the name of the fish, okay, which is a clownfish. So the label, that's what it's telling, the name of that fish, which is a clownfish. So fill that in, take a few seconds. You only have one left to do. Okay, our last sentence we want to finish here, it says the photo shows. The photo shows. So the photo is the picture of the habitat in the background. Okay, and let's think about what this was called. This was called a coral reef. Okay, so, and here it says right here, a coral reef is the perfect habitat, and that is what the picture is showing. So in our last sentence, we just want to write where it says the photo shows a coral reef. Yep, a coral reef. All right, if you could do that, you just did an awesome job learning about our habitats and our homes for different animals in a nonfiction story, and you did a great job learning all about a glossary, which is the part of a nonfiction story that can tell us more about words that we don't know what they mean. Okay? So, very good job listening to our nonfiction story and just doing a few things with me. You did great.